Lisa Carter wiped the sweat from her forehead and looked across the green fields of Cedar Falls. The morning sun painted the Rocky Mountains in gold and orange colors that made her smile every day. She had been working in the vegetable gardens since dawn, checking the tomato plants and corn that would feed the village through winter. The air smelled clean and fresh, filled with the sweet scent of growing things and mountain flowers. Her younger brother, Jake, waved to her from the school playground where he taught the village children. 23 years old and full of energy, Jake loved working with kids more than anything else in the world. Lisa could hear their laughter floating across the fields as they played games before morning lessons started. Mrs. Henderson, their 70-year-old neighbor, was already in their shared greenhouse tending to the special herbs she grew for the village doctor. Cedar Falls was home to 300 people who had chosen to live simply after the big cities became too crowded and noisy. Most folks here grew their own food, made their own clothes, and helped each other through good times and bad. Lisa had come here 5 years ago after leaving her job as a military engineer, tired of building weapons and wanting to create life instead of destroying it. The village felt like the safest place on earth. She walked toward the greenhouse where Mrs. Henderson was humming an old song while she worked. The elderly woman had become like a grandmother to Lisa and Jake, teaching them which plants could heal sickness and which ones made the best soup. Her hands were gentle with every seedling, and she knew the name of every person in the village along with their favorite foods and biggest worries. "Good morning, dear," Mrs. Henderson called out as Lisa entered the warm, humid space filled with growing plants. "The basil is coming along nicely, and I think we'll have enough mint tea to last through the cold months." Lisa smiled and began helping with the watering. They worked together in comfortable silence, two women who had found peace in this quiet corner of the world. Through the clear walls of the greenhouse, Lisa could see Jake organizing a game of tag with his students. The children's voices echoed off the mountains, creating a sound that always made her feel hopeful about the future. The sky above them was bright blue, without a single cloud. Birds sang in the pine trees, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers down from the high meadows. Everything felt perfect and normal, the way it had felt every day for the past 5 years. Lisa had no way of knowing that this would be the last normal moment of her life. At exactly 11:30 in the morning, the sky began to darken. Lisa looked up from the tomato plants she was staking and saw what looked like storm clouds forming overhead. But these clouds moved too fast and had edges that were too straight. Mrs. Henderson stepped out of the greenhouse and shaded her eyes with her hand as she stared upward. "That's strange weather," the old woman said softly. "I've never seen clouds move like that." The darkness spread across the entire sky in less than 2 minutes. The temperature dropped 10 degrees and all the birds stopped singing at once. Even the children on the playground had stopped playing and were looking up with worried faces. Jake gathered them closer to the school building, his teacher instincts telling him something was wrong. Then the ships appeared. 3 massive vessels, each one larger than the entire village, broke through what Lisa now realized were not clouds, but some kind of camouflage. The ships looked like they were made of crystal and metal twisted together in patterns that hurt to look at directly. They made no sound as they hung in the air above Cedar Falls, casting shadows that turned the warm morning into something cold and frightening. Lisa felt her engineering training kick in as her mind tried to understand what she was seeing. These were not human ships. The technology was completely different from anything she had ever studied or built. The way they stayed in the air without any visible engines or propulsion meant they were using physics that humans had not yet discovered. Mrs. Henderson grabbed Lisa's arm with fingers that trembled. "What are those things, dear?" Before Lisa could answer, beams of red light shot down from the ships. The first beam hit the village store and turned the entire building into ash in seconds. The second beam struck the community center where people were having their weekly meeting. The screams started then, high and terrible sounds that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Lisa pulled Mrs. Henderson toward the greenhouse as more red beams swept across the village like deadly searchlights. Each beam left nothing behind, except gray dust and the smell of burned metal. She could see Jake running toward them from the school, carrying two small children in his arms while other kids followed behind him. "The caves!" Lisa shouted to her brother. "Get everyone to the caves up the mountain." Jake nodded and changed direction, leading the children toward the hiking trails that wound up into the Rocky Mountains. Lisa had explored those caves during her first year in Cedar Falls and knew they went deep enough to provide shelter. She grabbed Mrs. Henderson around the waist and half-carried the elderly woman as they ran from the greenhouse behind them. More buildings disappeared in flashes of red light. The library, the medical clinic, the workshop where Mr. Peterson made furniture, all turned to dust in moments. The alien ships moved slowly and deliberately, as if they were following a careful plan to destroy everything in the village. Lisa and Mrs. Henderson had almost reached the tree line when a beam swept across the path in front of them. The heat was so intense that it singed Lisa's eyebrows even though the light passed 20 feet away. She could feel the energy in the air making her skin tingle and her hair stand on end. They dove behind a large boulder as another beam searched for them. Lisa could hear Jake calling her name from somewhere up the mountain, but she could not see him through the smoke that was starting to fill the air. The smell of burning wood and worse things made her stomach sick. Mrs. Henderson was breathing hard, and her face had turned very pale. "Go," she whispered to Lisa. "Save yourself, dear one." "We go together," Lisa said firmly, and helped the old woman to her feet. They moved from tree to tree, staying hidden as the red beams continued to destroy everything they had ever called home. 3 months had passed since the sky burned over Cedar Falls. Lisa sat in the deepest part of the old copper mine, listening to the wind howl through the mountain peaks above. The caves had become home to 12 survivors from her village and 37 other people who had escaped similar attacks across Colorado. What had once been a place for weekend hiking adventures was now humanity's last hiding spot in this part of the world. The mine stretched for miles underground, with tunnels that connected to natural caves formed millions of years ago. Lisa had mapped every passage during the long weeks after the attack, marking safe areas for sleeping and storage. The main chamber where they lived was as big as a church, with a small underground stream that provided fresh water. Smooth walls showed the marks of old mining equipment, and the air always smelled like metal and damp earth. Dr. Marcus Webb sat at a makeshift table made from wooden boards, studying pieces of alien technology that Captain Amy Rodriguez had brought back from her latest scouting mission. Webb had been a NASA scientist before the attacks, working on spacecraft engines and quantum physics. His gray hair was longer now, and his clothes were patched and dirty, but his mind was still sharp as he tried to understand how the alien devices worked. Rodriguez was a former Air Force pilot who had been visiting her sister in Denver when the ships appeared over that city. She was tough and smart, with short black hair and scars on her hands from building their hidden base. Every few days she led small teams out of the caves to gather supplies and information about what the aliens were doing to Earth. "The pattern is the same everywhere," Rodriguez said as she cleaned her rifle. "They hit population centers first, then set up mining operations in areas where people live for a long time. My team found 3 more extraction sites between here and the Wyoming border." Lisa looked up from the alien communication device she had been trying to repair. Over the past months, she had discovered that her background in quantum engineering helped her understand the strange technology better than anyone else in their group. The aliens used energy in ways that human science was just beginning to explore, but the basic principles were similar to experimental work she had done in the military. "They're not just randomly destroying things," Lisa said, holding up a crystal component that pulsed with soft blue light. "Every attack location matches up with areas that had strong human communities for generations. My village was founded in 1891. Denver has been a major city for over 100 years. There's a pattern here that we're missing." Webb nodded and pointed to a hand-drawn map covered with red marks showing attack sites. "I've been thinking the same thing. Look at this data Amy's teams collected. Every mining operation is located where human settlements existed for at least 50 years. They're not interested in empty wilderness or newly built areas. A young woman named Kelly brought them hot soup made from canned vegetables and dried meat. She was only 19 and had lost her entire family in the attack on Boulder. Like many of the survivors, she worked hard to stay busy and useful, helping with cooking and medical care for anyone who got sick or injured. Dr. Webb found something important today, Kelly said quietly. Show them the recording. Webb activated a small device that projected fuzzy images and sounds into the air above the table. The holographic display showed alien figures moving around. A mining site, their tall bodies covered in what looked like metallic skin that changed colors. They communicated in musical tones that sounded almost like singing. This is from a surveillance drone that Amy recovered from a crashed military base, Webb explained. I finally got it working and sent it to observe the mining operation near what used to be Fort Collins. Watch what they're extracting. The images showed the aliens using beam weapons to cut precise chunks from the earth. But instead of taking random dirt and rock, they were carefully selecting specific areas and testing each sample with handheld devices. When they found what they wanted, their excitement was obvious even across species barriers. Their musical communication became faster and higher pitched. They're mining crystals, Lisa said suddenly, recognizing the formation patterns. But not just any crystals. Look at how selective they are. They test every sample before extraction. Rodriguez leaned forward. Crystals for what? Energy? Weapons? Lisa held up the alien component she had been studying. This crystal powers their communication system, but it's not like anything in our periodic table. The molecular structure is completely different from natural Earth crystals. It's like something changed them at the quantum level. Webb's eyes widened with understanding. Change them how? What could alter crystal formation over time? Emotional resonance, Lisa whispered, the terrible truth hitting her like a physical blow. Human emotional energy affects quantum fields in ways we barely understand. Generations of people living in the same place, feeling joy and sadness and love and fear, could theoretically alter the molecular structure of nearby minerals. The cave fell silent except for the sound of dripping water somewhere in the darkness. Everyone stared at Lisa as the implications of her discovery became clear. You're saying they're mining human emotions? Rodriguez asked quietly. Not emotions. Directly, they're mining crystals that have been changed by human emotional energy over decades or centuries. Places where people lived and loved and suffered and celebrated. The aliens found out that human consciousness somehow makes ordinary crystals into something incredibly powerful. Webb stood up and began pacing around the small space. That explains everything. Why they hid established communities but ignored new settlements. Why they're being so careful about what they extract. Earth isn't just another planet to them. It's the only place in the universe where conscious beings have lived long enough to create these modified crystals. Rodriguez checked her weapon and looked toward the cave entrance. Then they'll never stop coming. If these crystals are that valuable, they'll strip mine every place humans ever lived. Lisa felt anger building inside her chest, hot and sharp like metal heated in a forge. The aliens had not just destroyed her village and killed her brother. They had destroyed it because generations of her neighbors had loved the land and called it home. The very happiness and community spirit that made Cedar Falls special had painted a target on every person who lived there. We need to hit them back, she said, surprising herself with the determination in her voice. Not just hide and survive. We need to make them pay for what they did. Webb looked worried. Lisa, they have technology that's centuries ahead of ours. Their ships can destroy entire cities. What could we possibly do against that kind of power? Lisa picked up the alien crystal and felt its energy pulsing against her palm. We learned to use their own technology against them. These crystals don't just store energy. If I'm right about how they work, they can be overloaded to create massive feedback loops. Turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Rodriguez smiled grimly. I like the sound of that. What do you need? More alien technology to study. Communication equipment, weapons, anything we can get our hands on. And we need to find their command center or main base. If we're going to hit back, We need to hit something that matters to them. Kelly had been listening quietly, but now she spoke up. There's a crashed alien ship about 30 miles north of here. Amy's team spotted it last week, but thought it was too dangerous to approach. Not anymore, Lisa said, feeling purpose flow through her for the first time since the attack. Tomorrow we go hunting. Winter had arrived early in the Rocky Mountains, bringing snow that fell thick and heavy around the hidden mine entrance. Lisa stood at the edge of their underground home, watching white flakes drift past the carefully concealed opening. 6 weeks had passed since they found the crashed alien ship, and everything had changed. The ship lay hidden in a deep valley 30 miles from their caves, partially buried under rockslide debris that had probably caused the crash. It was smaller than the massive vessels that had destroyed the villages, built for scouting rather than warfare. Lisa and her team had spent weeks carefully excavating it and studying every component they could safely remove. Dr. Webb worked frantically at his improvised laboratory, surrounded by alien technology that hummed and glowed with strange energy. He had aged years in the past months, driven by the knowledge that humanity was running out of time. Reports from other survivor groups painted a grim picture of alien mining operations expanding across every continent. The quantum resonance patterns are incredible, Webb muttered as he calibrated another piece of alien equipment. Their faster-than-light communication system uses quantum entanglement on a scale we never thought possible. Messages travel instantly, across interstellar distances. Lisa knelt beside the ship's navigation computer, which she had finally managed to activate using modified power crystals. Holographic star charts filled the air around her, showing the location of the alien homeworld and the routes their ships used to travel between star systems. The destination was 17 light-years away in the direction of the bright star. Vega. Captain Rodriguez entered the chamber carrying bad news from her latest reconnaissance mission. Her face was grim and her winter gear was covered with fresh snow that melted into dark spots on the cave floor. They're accelerating the timeline, Rodriguez reported. Hunter-killer teams are systematically searching every mountain range in North America. They found the survivor group near Seattle last week. No one escaped. Lisa felt her stomach clench with fear and anger. The aliens were no longer content to simply mine their crystalline treasures. They had decided that humans were too dangerous to leave alive even in small scattered groups. Extermination was now the goal. How long before they find us? Webb asked without looking up from his work. 2 weeks, maybe 3 if we're lucky, Rodriguez answered. They're using some kind of energy scanning that can detect large groups of people underground. Our mining tunnels won't hide us much longer. Lisa stood up from the navigation computer and faced her 2 closest allies. The plan that had been forming in her mind for weeks was insane, but it was also their only hope of striking back before humanity was completely eliminated. I'm taking the ship to their homeworld, she announced quietly. Webb dropped the crystal component he had been holding. Lisa, that's suicide. Even if we could get the ship operational, you'd never survive the journey. And what could one person possibly do against an entire planet of aliens? Lisa pointed to the modified crystals she had been developing. These aren't just power sources anymore. I've learned how to weaponize them by creating quantum feedback loops. A small overload can disable alien technology in a limited area. A large overload could theoretically create a cascade effect across their entire planet. Rodriguez studied the innocuous-looking crystals with new respect. You're talking about destroying their homeworld. I'm talking about giving them a reason to leave Earth alone, Lisa corrected. If they know that humans can reach their home and threaten their families, maybe they'll decide that our planet isn't worth the risk. Webb began pacing around the cave chamber, his scientific mind working through the technical problems. The ship is badly damaged. We'd need weeks to repair the quantum drive, and we don't have the right materials for half the components. Then we make do with what we have, Lisa said firmly. Jury-rig solutions use human technology to replace alien systems wherever possible. I don't need the ship to be perfect. I just need it to get me to their homeworld in one piece. Kelly, appeared at the chamber entrance carrying hot coffee and worried news. "There's something else," she said hesitantly. The radio picked up a transmission from the European Survivor Network. The aliens aren't just mining crystals anymore. They're loading massive cargo ships and preparing to leave Earth orbit. Lisa felt hope and despair warring in her chest. "They're abandoning the planet?" "No," Webb said grimly. "They're shipping out everything they've already mined, getting their treasure to safety before they finish exterminating all remaining humans. This is the endgame, Lisa. Once those cargo ships leave, they'll sterilize every square mile of Earth." Rodriguez checked her weapon and looked toward the cave entrance. "Then we don't have weeks to repair the ship? We have days?" Lisa made her decision. 48 hours. "That's how long we spend on repairs before I launch, ready or not," Webb protested. "The quantum drive alone needs at least a week of recalibration. If it fails during faster-than-light travel, you'll be scattered across a dozen star systems." "Then don't let it fail," Lisa said simply. "You're the smartest person I've ever met, Marcus. Figure out a way to make it work." The next 2 days blurred together in a frenzy of desperate work. Lisa learned to pilot alien technology by connecting human computers to the ship's navigation system. Webb performed miracles of engineering by using car batteries and radio components to bypass damaged alien systems. Rodriguez organized supply runs to gather materials and kept watch for approaching alien patrols. On the morning of the third day, the ship was as ready as they could make it. Lisa stood beside the sleek vessel in the hidden valley wearing a combination of human spacesuit components and alien environmental systems that Webb had modified to keep her alive during the journey. "The weapons payload is installed," Webb reported, his voice heavy with reluctance. 24 modified crystals arranged in a cascade configuration. "If your theory is correct, they'll create a feedback loop that will disable every piece of alien technology on their homeworld." Rodriguez handed Lisa a small communication device. "This will let you send one message back to Earth before you activate the weapons. Let us know if the plan works." Lisa hugged both of her friends, knowing she would probably never see them again. "Take care of the others. If this fails, you're humanity's last hope." She climbed into the alien ship and began the startup sequence Webb had taught her. Strange. Lights and sounds filled the cockpit as systems came online. Through the transparent canopy, she could see her friends backing away to a safe distance, the quantum drive engaged with a sensation. Like falling through empty space, Lisa felt the ship lift off and accelerate toward the stars, carrying Earth's desperate gambit into the cold darkness between worlds. Behind her, the blue planet grew smaller until it was just another point of light in an ocean of stars. She was alone now, flying through space at impossible speeds toward an alien world that had destroyed everything she loved. In her cargo hold, 24 crystalline bombs waited to deliver humanity's message of defiance to those who had thought humans were too primitive to fight back. The journey to Vigo would take 3 weeks. Lisa spent the time studying everything the ship's computers could teach her about alien culture and technology. She would need every advantage she could get when she reached their homeworld. Because she was no longer just seeking revenge, she was carrying the future of 2 species in her hands, and the choices she made would determine whether the galaxy was big enough for both humans and aliens to survive. The alien homeworld appeared ahead of Lisa's stolen ship like a jewel hanging in space. Kalos Prime orbited a dying red giant star that cast everything in shades of deep orange and gold. As she approached the planet, Lisa could see that the entire surface was covered with crystalline structures that spiraled up from the ground like frozen music made visible. 3 weeks of lonely travel had given her time to study the alien databases and learn about Zephyrian civilization. What she discovered changed everything she thought she knew about her enemies. They were not monsters who destroyed for pleasure. They were a dying race whose sun was slowly burning out, forcing them to search the galaxy for new sources of energy. To power their civilization, the ship's scanners showed cities built entirely from living crystal that grew according to mathematical patterns too complex for human minds to fully understand. Billions of Zephyrians lived in harmony with technology that seemed more like art than machinery. Their society had existed for thousands of years without war or conflict, sustained by the natural energy crystals found on their homeworld, but those crystals were weakening as their star died. Lisa could see the evidence in the dimming glow that emanated from the crystal cities. The Zephyrians faced extinction within a few generations unless they found a new source of power. Earth's emotion-charged crystals represented salvation for their entire species. Lisa activated the ship's camouflage systems and descended toward the planet's surface. Her plan required her to reach the central quantum core that powered the capital city, a massive crystalline structure that rose from the center of the largest urban area. According to the navigation computer, this core was connected to every piece of Zephyrian technology on the planet. The ship touched down in a maintenance area near the quantum core, its stealth systems hiding it among similar vessels. Lisa checked her environmental suit and the timer on her crystalline weapons. 24 modified Earth crystals waited in her backpack, ready to create a feedback loop that would destroy the planetary power grid and everything connected to it. She slipped out of the ship and began moving through the crystal corridors toward her target. The architecture was beautiful beyond description, with walls that seemed to sing softly as energy flowed through them. The air itself felt alive with gentle harmonics that made her skin tingle. Despite everything the Zephyrians had done to Earth, Lisa found herself amazed by the elegance of their civilization. The corridors were filled with aliens going about their daily lives. Each Zephyrian stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that looked like polished metal and changed colors to reflect their emotions. They moved with fluid grace and communicated in musical tones that sounded like choir singing. Many of them carried crystal tools and wore clothing that seemed to be grown rather than manufactured. Lisa's stolen Zephyrian environmental suit allowed her to blend in with the crowd, but she knew her deception would not last long if anyone examined her closely. She moved quickly through the flowing passages, following signs that pointed toward the central core facility. The quantum core chamber was vast, stretching upward beyond the reach of her vision. The core itself was a column of pure crystallaz, wide as a city block, pulsing with energy that flowed through smaller crystals embedded in the walls. The sound it made was like a heartbeat amplified 1,000 times. Resonating through the floor and into Lisa's bones, she began placing her weapons around the base of the core, each crystal device designed to overload at precisely the same moment. The feedback loop would travel up the main core and spread through every connected system on the planet. Transportation, communication, life support, everything would fail simultaneously. "What are you doing?" The voice spoke in accented English, startling Lisa so badly that she nearly dropped the crystal she was placing. She spun around to see a young Zephyrian watching her with curious orange eyes. His skin was shifting between blue and silver, indicating confusion and concern. "I am HFY," the alien continued in careful English. "I study human technology sent from Earth. Your energy signature is different from other scouts. You carry devices I do not recognize." Lisa's hand moved instinctively toward the detonator clipped to her belt. One press of the button would activate all 24 weapons and destroy the quantum core. But something in the alien's tone made her pause. He sounded genuinely curious rather than threatening. "You learned our language," she said carefully. HFY's skin shifted to warmer colors. "Many of us study human culture and technology. Your species is fascinating. You create energy patterns in crystals that we never thought possible. The emotional resonance you generate is unlike anything in our galaxy." Lisa felt anger building in her chest. Fascinating enough to kill 3 billion humans to get those crystals? The alien's skin darkened to deep purple, a color Lisa had learned indicated shock and distress. "Killed?" The report said your species was relocated to preserve the crystal formation sites. No harm was supposed to come to human populations. Relocated? Lisa laughed bitterly. Your ships turned our cities to ash. My brother died in my arms. Entire families were vaporized in seconds. HFY took a step back, his skin cycling through rapid color changes that suggested extreme emotional distress. That is not possible. The Harmony Protocol forbids harm to sentient beings. Our ships carried displacement technology to move populations safely. Lisa realized with growing horror that this young alien genuinely believed what he was saying. Your displacement technology kills everything it touches. Look. She activated a small recording device from her suit and projected images of the Cedar Falls attack. Vexai watched in stunned silence as the red beams destroyed buildings and people alike. His skin turned completely black, a color that Lisa now understood meant grief and despair. The military commanders told us the humans were safely relocated, Vexai whispered. They said your species would be given new worlds to inhabit after the crystal extraction was complete. They lied to you, Lisa said quietly. Your people are committing genocide, and they've convinced your citizens that it's a rescue mission? Vexai sank to the floor, his tall frame folding with apparent shock. The harmony has been broken. We have become what we swore never to become, destroyers instead of protectors. Lisa looked at the remaining crystals she needed to place around the quantum core. Her mission was clear. Destroy the power grid and send a message that Earth could strike back at the heart of the Zephyrian Empire. But this conversation had revealed something she had not expected. The Zephyrian people were not evil. They were being deceived by their own leaders just as humans had been deceived by the initial reports of the attacks. Your military will continue the killing until every human is dead, Lisa said, unless something forces them to stop. Vexai looked up at her with eyes that had shifted to deep gold. You came here to destroy the quantum core, to disable our civilization in revenge for what was done to yours. Lisa nodded, her hand still resting on the detonator. 24 weapons perfectly synchronized. Your entire power grid will collapse. Millions of innocent Zephyrians will die when the life support systems fail, Vexai said quietly. Children who know nothing of war or killing. Elders who have spent centuries studying art and mathematics. Lisa felt the weight of two civilizations balanced on the edge of her decision. She could complete her mission and become the architect of genocide herself, or she could find another way. But what other way was there? How could she save Earth? Without destroying Kalos Prime? The answer came to her as she looked at the massive quantum core pulsing with energy. She did not need to destroy the Zephyrian civilization. She needed to offer them something better than extinction. Tell me about your dying star, she said to Vexai. How long before it fails completely? The alien's skin shifted to worried. Yellow, perhaps 50 years, maybe less. Why do you ask? Lisa smiled as a new plan began forming in her mind. Because I think I know how to save both our species. But first, I need to talk to your leaders, all of them. Lisa stood in the center of the Zephyrian High Council chamber, surrounded by dozens of tall alien figures whose skin colors shifted like aurora displays. The quantum core hummed beneath their feet, its energy flowing through crystal conduits that connected every part of their civilization. In her hands, she held the detonator that could destroy it all with a single button press. Vexai had convinced the council to hear her words before deciding her fate. The young engineer stood beside her, his skin a steady blue that indicated determination and hope. Around them, the council members displayed the full spectrum of Zephyrian emotions through their changing colors. Some showed the deep red of anger, others the purple of fear, and a few the gold of curiosity, the supreme harmonizer. An ancient Zephyrian whose crystalline robes marked her as the highest authority on the planet spoke in musical tones that the chamber's translation system converted to English. You claim to carry weapons that can destroy our homeworld, human Lisa Carter. Yet you ask to speak rather than act? Why do you hesitate to take revenge for the deaths of your people? Lisa looked around the chamber at faces that were alien but somehow familiar in their expressions of uncertainty and hope. Because revenge would make me just like the commanders who ordered the attacks on Earth. I came here to save my species, not to become a killer of innocents. One of the military commanders, his skin a harsh orange that indicated aggression, stepped forward. Your species was an obstacle to survival. We acted within the parameters of the greater harmony. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. The needs of the many, Lisa repeated quietly. Then let me show you what the many really need. She activated her portable computer and projected holographic images into the chamber. The first images showed Earth before the attacks with human cities and Zephyrian crystal formations coexisting in the same locations. Then came her analysis of the quantum resonance patterns that made Earth's crystals so powerful. Your scientists discovered that human emotional energy modifies crystal structures at the quantum level, Lisa explained. Generations of love, joy, sadness, and hope somehow changed ordinary minerals into the most powerful energy sources in the galaxy. But they missed the most important discovery of all. The Supreme Harmonizer leaned forward, her ancient eyes reflecting. The holographic display. What discovery? Lisa smiled and activated the next set of images, showing detailed scans of modified Earth crystals. These crystals don't just store energy, they can generate it. The emotional resonance that changed their structure also gave them the ability to stabilize dying stars. The chamber fell silent except for the deep humming of the quantum core. Every Zephyrian present understood the implications immediately. Their civilization was dying because their star was failing. Earth's crystals could save both species. Impossible, the military commander growled. Crystals cannot affect stellar fusion processes. Lisa projected the final set of data calculations she had worked out during the long journey to Kalos Prime. Quantum resonance fields can influence stellar plasma dynamics. A network of properly tuned Earth crystals could extend your star's life by thousands of years, but only if the crystals continue to be charged by human emotional energy. Vex High S. Skin brightened to brilliant gold as understanding dawned. You're proposing a partnership instead of conquest. I'm proposing survival for both our species, Lisa corrected. Earth's humans continue living where they've always lived, creating the emotional resonance that charges the crystals. Zephyrians provide the technology to harvest energy without destroying the source. Both civilizations benefit. The military commander's skin turned dark red. Humans are primitive and aggressive. They cannot be trusted to honor such an agreement. Lisa felt anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down and spoke calmly. We're primitive enough to figure out how to weaponize your own crystals and carry them to your homeworld. We're aggressive enough to choose cooperation over genocide when we had the power to destroy you. Maybe those aren't weaknesses. The Supreme Harmonizer stood and moved closer to examine Lisa's holographic displays. This partnership you propose would require fundamental changes to our military policies. Complete withdrawal from Earth, reparations for the damage already done. Shared technology and resources. Yes, Lisa said simply. And it would require humans to forgive what was done to us. To work with people who killed our families and destroyed our homes. That might be the hardest part of all.